All right. My clicker's not working. This is going well already. There we go. Cool. Okay, so before we start, a quick disclaimer. The views expressed in this talk are my own and do not necessarily reflect those of my employer. All right, so hello. My name's Graham. My day job is being a senior tech lead manager on the client engineering team at Airbnb. So a senior TLM is either the best or the worst, depending on your point of view, of half senior manager and half senior staff engineer. So I've written several open source tools over the years, including Crypt, a file vault escrow tool, the Mac admin's OS query extension, and now I'm about to say defunct imager, but I learned this week that it's not defunct. Mind blown. I miss imaging dearly, but Jesus. All right, so I'm on the board for Mac admin's open source. We do things like supporting the Sofa feed and signing Monkey. Running Mac admin's open source is not free, surprisingly. We have the not inconsiderable cost of hosting and bandwidth for Sofa in particular. So if you use Sofa and find it useful, or find having a code sign Monkey or OS query extension useful, or even if you use any of our OS query tables in your commercial product, please consider making a small donation to help us cover our costs. The board have been covering a lot of these costs ourselves because we really believe in what we're doing. So the community stepping up and helping us out would be lovely. I'm a testicular cancer survivor and Movember fundraiser. So far, we have raised together over $50,000. That goes towards funding research and awareness campaigns for a whole host of men's health issues, including testicular cancer and prostate cancer. So here's a fun fact. My daughter's birthday is in November, and this past year, she asked that instead of her friends bringing presents to her birthday party, she wanted them to make donations to Movember. So a 6-year-old is making the right call in helping to put a stop to men dying too young. So perhaps if you find this talk useful, you could also consider donating. So let's get into this, right? You're a Mac admin, probably. You've probably been doing this for a while. You've built systems. You've automated boring stuff. You've solved hard problems. Maybe you've even mentored junior people, right? You know your way around this stuff. But now you're asking yourself, what's next? So maybe you've taken a look at the org chart and you noticed that it kind of looks like this glass ceiling looming over you. You go from engineer, senior engineer, and then what? Manager? So at many organizations, the career path from engineer does end up in management. If that's a goal of yours, that's great. You don't need to be here, you can go. But management isn't for everybody, right? The sad fact is that in a lot of places, people are forced to move into management if they want to progress. And they're forced to move into management without being told the big secret about being a manager. And that is that managing people is a completely different job to being an engineer. Some engineers are good people managers. Some engineers are terrible managers. The same as some managers are absolutely terrible engineers. So if being a manager isn't the route you want to take, like what else is there for you? For the observant amongst you, you won't be that shocked to learn, based off the title of this talk, that the next step on the engineering leadership ladder is staff engineer. But what is a staff engineer? What makes them different from senior engineers? So the big shift is in scope and in impact. A staff engineer is thinking about the long game, not just the next sprint or the next project, but the next year or even the next 3 years. You're setting technical direction. You're shaping systems, not just building features. You're identifying cross-team risks, defining architecture patterns, and driving alignment at a higher level. You're expected to think bigger, wider, and longer term than the rest of the team, and help others execute towards that vision. So what else differentiates a staff engineer from others? So let's talk about a mindset shift. That is absolutely critical if you want to move into a staff role. As engineers, we're trained to solve problems. Something breaks, we fix it. There's friction, we automate it. And that's great, that's valuable, but at the staff level, that's the absolute baseline. The real shift is in learning to become a problem finder. That means looking beyond your immediate task or team. It means looking for patterns, gaps, inefficiencies, things that might not be broken yet, but they're going to be. Or things that nobody else has noticed or even has the perspective to frame as a problem. And then, critically, deciding which of those problems are actually worth solving. Not every weird problem or outdated workflow needs a fix, but part of your job is knowing which ones do, and then having the influence to do something about it. So don't just wait for work to be handed to you. Get curious, get proactive. Ask, what's slowing people down? Where are the gaps between teams? What's fragile or scaling badly? Or a security risk that no one's flagged yet? That's how you stop reacting, and that's how you start leading. So another hallmark of a great staff engineer is that they're a force multiplier. Your impact shouldn't just come from the code you personally write. In fact, the more senior you get, the less of your impact should be directly tied to your commits. Your job becomes making other people more effective. That could mean unblocking a teammate who's stuck. It could mean writing clear technical docs that help others make good decisions when you're not in the room. It might be mentoring somebody so they level up faster, or influencing architecture so the whole org avoids a bad decision. You might lead by building shared tooling, or even just creating a clear mental model that helps your team reason about a complex system. The best staff engineers leave behind a wake of better engineers, smoother systems, and smarter decisions. So, you might be sitting there thinking, coaching people, unblocking teammates, driving alignment, and thinking, hold on a minute, this sounds like being a manager. And yeah, you're right. Really does, doesn't it? There is overlap. Both roles require leadership, influence, communication, and vision. But the how and the what are different. Managers focus on people, hiring, performance reviews, career growth, team health. Their tool set's organizational. Staff engineers focus on systems, architecture, long-term technical direction. Their tool set's going to be technical. Both are leadership roles, but staff engineers lead without authority. You're not someone's boss, but you still need to earn trust, drive consensus, and move the organization forward. So this is how mature organizations think about the two tracks. Management and technical leadership are not a hierarchy. They're parallel paths. Staff engineer isn't a stepping stone to management, it's its own destination. Now, not everyone will get this right. Like, some still see management as like the real path to leadership. That's changing, and it's up to us as a community to keep pushing for that recognition. You can be a leader without managing people, and staff engineering is proof of that. All right, so maybe by now you're thinking, that sounds pretty interesting. I want to do this stuff, but how do I actually get there? So let's talk about what separates a senior engineer from a staff engineer in practice. What are the attributes that actually matter? So I'm going to walk through a few, and yes, some of them are going to sound a bit soft or maybe a little managery, but trust me, every one of these will have a huge impact on your ability to lead without authority and to drive meaningful outcomes. So obviously, you need to know your tech, right? As a staff engineer, you're going to be the tech boss. But what does that really mean? At the staff level, you are expected to be an expert. Maybe not in everything, but it's definitely in your area. You should be the go-to person for your domain, whether that's macOS internals, MDM protocols, software deployment, endpoint security, whatever it might be. But expertise today is not enough. You need to stay current, and that means keeping up with the latest platform changes. It means banging on the beta of macOS the moment it drops. It means watching WWDC like a hawk. It means staying on top of changes in identity, networking, security. It means reading between the lines of Apple's sometimes vague documentation. We work in an ecosystem where we don't get roadmaps. Thanks, Apple. So part of your job is to read the tea leaves. A quick show of hands. Who ordered an iMac Pro even though you had absolutely no intention of deploying them in your environment? All right, couple. Okay. Well, I did, because it was the first device that shipped for T2. And we needed to know how it was going to impact us. What about ordering DTK, the Apple Silicon Developer Transition Kit? Yeah, a few more, right? Doing that helped us reduce the risk of these transitions to our org by getting ahead of these new technologies before they were forced upon us. Being technically strong is what gives you the platform to influence, because people trust engineers who know what they're talking about. Okay, so you've got technical depth, right? Now what? Now you need to communicate it. And I don't just mean writing clear documentation or speaking up in meetings, although both are absolutely important. What I mean is learning to tell a story. Staff engineers spend a lot of time explaining things. To engineers, to managers, to execs, you need to tailor that story every single time. If you're working with a junior engineer, like, you're breaking down complex systems in a way that makes them approachable and actionable. If you're pitching a project to a VP, you're not talking about APIs or MDM or build systems. You're talking about business value, time saved, risk reduced, strategic alignment. It's the same problem, but it's a different message. So let's say you are proposing that you should build an iOS app. It's going to communicate with your end users, and it's going to integrate Google Context-Aware Access. Like, you've got your design doc, you've got the architecture sorted, you've got the security model. That's great. That's going to make sense to your engineers. But then you send that same doc to an exec. Chances are they're going to be confused by all the APIs, the APNSs, and the client states. Or even worse, they're just going to be bored and uninterested. You need to speak their language. They want to know what the impact's going to be. What's the improvement to user experience going to be? What will this do to our support ticket numbers? Like, impact is what gets your attention here. So now, we're going to talk about opportunity. When you're early in your career, you're mostly handed your projects. Someone tells you what needs doing, and you just do it. At the senior level, you're probably starting to suggest projects. Maybe you see inefficiencies, and you write a script or build a new workflow. But at staff, sometimes the work is not going to look glamorous at first. Okay, show of hands. Who here has ever been handed a project that looked messy or political or completely underscoped? Everyone, yes. All right, so we're going to talk about a hypothetical project here. All right, so you've been asked to automate the setup of developer laptops. So you spent loads of time talking to owners of the dev tools to gather all their requirements. You've written design docs. You've done a ton of work to get it implemented, and it's finally in production. You've cut down a 30 or 40-step process to just a handful. Like, you're feeling very happy yourself. You're a top-notch engineer right now, right? But then this sort of feedback drops in. It's not just one paragraph, as the intro suggests. It's at least a couple of pages long. And you're like, oh, this is annoying. Someone's pooping all over my hard work. Honestly, you're probably feeling a little bit upset at this point, right? But then you realize who it came from. It's someone immensely important. You're now in full-on defense mode, right? You can't ignore this. You've got to say something, right? So you start writing down your defense. Yeah, well, we have not received any negative feedback, and the complaints you had about that documentation, well, that's someone else's problem. Like, that's some other team, right? So let's take a step back and think about how this exec is going to take this response. After all, they've spent time to write literally 2 pages about this. So they obviously care about this, even if they're frustrated. What you're basically saying here is, we've fixed everything we can, and the rest is not our fault. So at best, this exec is going to shrug their shoulders, have a not particularly good opinion of you or your team, and just move on with their lives. At worst, they're going to continue to insist that your solution's the wrong one, that your team is wrong, and your team has no idea what they're doing. So how can you turn this into an opportunity? How can you cover yourself and your team in glory? So, it turns out that some of the items they've raised have actually already been fixed in a later release. But rather than just saying, yeah, we've already fixed it, like, you can acknowledge, yes, boss, you are absolutely right. You know, highlight exactly what you did to fix their issues. And if they have other unresolved points, like, be specific about what your next steps are and when you expect to address them. Because validating what they say paints you in a much better light. Giving specifics about when you're going to fix it makes you look even better. But the real opportunity here is to corral the other teams responsible for the other 60, 70% of the work and make them fix things. Like, it's honestly not a ton of work to sit in a meeting or two and explain what they're missing, right? Get them to commit to a date to fix it. But what do you get out of this? Like, in this fictional VP's eyes, you are the person who got this sorted for him. You are someone who owns outcomes, not just deliverables. You are now the hero of the story. All right, so one of the most underrated staff engineer skills, and one that I completely ignored early in my career, is building a strong internal network. So here's the trap. Most of us only start reaching out to other teams after we need something. Like, we're blocked, we need a change upstream, we want buy-in on a new process, and we're stuck waiting on people we've never spoken to before. Like, don't let that be you. Build the network before you need it. Staff engineers aren't lone wolves, they're deeply connected. Not just their direct team, but across the org. That's how they get things unblocked, how they build momentum, how they even know where to spend their energy. All right, so I used to think networking was this thing that PMs or managers did, like something that maybe you did at an offsite or a conference or something. But here's what I learned. Relationships are a technical skill because you can have the best idea in the world. But if you don't have the trust, the access or context, it's not going anywhere. And like any skill, you can get better at it. Ask questions publicly in Slack so others learn too. Follow up with results when someone helps you, and thank people a lot. And finally, give credit before you take credit. These are really low effort habits that build high trust relationships, and those relationships are your future power tools. So I like to think about the org the same way I think about system architecture. Every team's a service. People are the interfaces. There are dependencies, there are data flows. And let's be honest here, there are bottlenecks. As you move into a staff level role, you naturally start building a mental model of this. You will start to know who owns what, who's easy to work with, who tends to block things and why, and which Slack channels are where the real work happens. This mental map doesn't come from a doc. It comes from experience, repetition, and curiosity. You build it by showing up, listening, asking questions, and noticing patterns. And once you have that mental model, it gets so much easier to navigate the org, to know who to pull in, how to approach them, how to get things unstuck. And that sets you up perfectly for what comes next. And that's influencing without authority. So how do you actually get people to do things when you have no formal authority over them? Maybe you've found an opportunity, the documentation's a mess, the onboarding flow's broken, or there's a risk in how something's deployed. You see the fix. But the system's not yours. The team's not yours. What do you do now? This is where influence without authority becomes the most powerful tool you have. And the foundation of that influence, well, you've already been building it, right? You know, you've done the work to know who owns what. You understand what matters to your peers, their pain points, their roadmap pressure, their OKRs. You've earned a reputation as someone who solves real problems and doesn't just throw tickets over the wall. So now when you need something, you're not making a cold ask. You're connecting your goal to their goal. You're making the path easy. You're navigating the org like a routing protocol. You're finding the fastest, most reliable path to yes. And if you need backup, you know which levers you can pull now. Your peer advocate, senior engineers, or maybe even a friendly manager who trusts your judgment. That is what influence without authority looks like. It's strategic, it's quiet, but it does move the system through. And if you want to dive deeper into this, this article I've linked over here is one of the best I've found. I refer to people all the time. Okay, so some actual tactics, run the pre-meeting. By pre-meeting, I mean socializing your ideas with your key stakeholders before the meeting. When you have allies already in the bag, the others in the meeting are much more likely just to follow them. Trading visibility, promoting other people's work will gain you allies. And asking stakeholders, what does success look like for you? That shows that you are aligned with their goals, not just your own. Instead of pushing your idea or solution, you're centering on their definition of value. That builds trust real fast. They see you as an ally, not as a competitor for resources or attention. All right, well, this one sounds so managery, I think I might be sick. I'm sorry. But a key attribute of a staff engineer is focusing on what's best for the business. It might be cool to build out a custom tool that does something, but you need to have real justification to do so. Is that if there's an off-the-shelf solution that works fine for what you need, like why are you suggesting to build one? And sometimes it all comes down to reframing the problem. Reframing the problem you want to solve to align with the business needs. So let's say you want to migrate to a new MDM just because you really don't like the UI of your current one. Like, that's not a business need, if we're honest. Maybe the new one's more expensive, so you can't use that as a reason. But maybe if you spend a little time calculating how long it takes to make the average change, then multiply that by however many changes you make in a week or a month, then you've got much more compelling business case. Here's another example. Let's say there's a bug in macOS that stops a small portion of your company from working. But that small portion is working on something that is vital for your next product launch. Obviously, you want to be secure. So perhaps you allow the fleet to install the update and ask those few users not to update. But maybe you look at it from a business perspective, and you can't take the risk of those users not being able to work. And perhaps you can't reliably identify them. So you decide to hold back that update from the entire fleet until the product launch is over. So one of the hardest shifts at staff level is figuring out what not to do. You can't be everywhere. You can't fix everything. This is where I come back to the Eisenhower matrix. It's a really simple framework that helps you decide where your energy should go. Urgent and important? Sorry, you're probably on the hook for that. Important but not urgent? Put it to one side. That's going to be where your highest leverage work lives. You should think about that when you've got more time. Urgent but not important, that is a growth opportunity for somebody else, delegate that stuff. Neither? In the words of Elsa, let it go. Seriously, or worse, write script for it and just never think about it again. Staff engineers aren't just builders, we're force multipliers. Part of your job is to create space, for focus, for strategy, for coaching others. This framework helps you do that without any guilt. And this isn't just for your time. This is how you can level up your team. Junior and mid-level engineers are often stuck in that urgent but not important section. Pull them up, delegate wisely, coach them through it. That's how they grow and how you can scale. The more intentional you are about this, the more room you have to operate at the level where your org really needs you to. Okay, so far we've talked about technical skill, communication, leadership, and business focus. But there's another piece that often gets overlooked, and that's community. At the staff level, your reputation matters. Not just inside your company, but outside of it too. Why? Because visibility adds weight to your ideas. Because being part of a broader professional network gives you insight, inspiration, and allies. Because sometimes the best solutions come from people you have never met until you connect with them at a conference or online maybe. But also, because the community needs leadership. The next generation of Mac admins needs role models. They need mentors, maintainers, speakers. Staff level engineers give back. They contribute. They help raise the bar, not just for themselves, but for everybody else too. And that ties directly into this. Build your brand. And that doesn't mean becoming an influencer. It means sharing what you know, owning your perspective, being visible in your domain. That might look like speaking at a conference like this one, writing a blog post or a case study. Maybe it's sharing tools or code you've built on GitHub. Maybe it's going on a podcast or joining in with a community meetup. These things show the world and your employer that you know your stuff, that you care about the craft, that you're pushing our industry forward. And when your name carries weight outside of your org, it carries more weight inside of it too. So build your brand. People cannot advocate for you if they have no idea what you do. So let's say all this is resonating with you. You're technically strong. You care about your craft. You start thinking about longer term problems. Maybe you're already doing some staff level work without the title. But the question is, how do you make the leap? There's no checklist. There's no magic formula. But there are a few things that help me get there, and I've seen them work for other people too. So one of the most valuable things I did was asked to be invited to meetings that were, frankly, above my pay grade. But I didn't go there to speak, I went to listen. When you're in the room where decisions get made, planning meetings, roadmap reviews, cross-functional working groups, that kind of stuff, you start to understand how leaders think. You learn what matters to them, what trade-offs they're making, and once you understand that, you can start to frame your own work in ways that really land with them. You can see how a patching strategy connects to risk mitigation, how automation connects to operational efficiency, like how device health ties into compliance and business continuity. You also start spotting gaps, problems you are uniquely positioned to solve. And you'll know how to pitch them now. Like, if you're not sure how to ask when you want to get into these meetings, like, keep it super simple, right? Like, just say, I'm trying to understand how decisions get made so I can better align my work with org goals. Would it be all right if I just sat in on this one? And eventually, you won't even have to ask. You'll just get the invite. Because people will see that you think beyond your role, that you belong to be in that room. You belong in that room. That's English. I know English. All right, so another step, if you want to grow into a staff engineer role, is start asking leaders what's on their mind. I mean literally, like go to a manager, a director, somebody adjacent to your org, and ask them, what's keeping you up at night? What are you worried about in the next 6 to 12 months? Where do you see risk, friction, or just things quietly going sideways? Why? Because staff engineers don't just solve technical problems, they solve organizational ones. And the biggest, most strategic problems, usually they're not written down in Jira, like they're floating around in an exec's mental backlog, like half-formed worries about scale or reliability or security. Like when you ask these questions, 3 powerful things start to happen. You get real insight into the bigger picture. You build trust. Like you're showing that you care more about than just your own code and your own team's OKRs. And sometimes you get handed a problem that no one else owns yet, and you get to shape the solution from scratch. That's how high-impact projects start. That's how you get noticed. That's how you earn sponsors who will go to bat for your promotion. So now, quick show of hands. Who here who's actually asked a VP or a director what's keeping them up at night? A few, not many, but that's okay. That means you've got your next growth experiment ready to go, right? So don't wait for perfect clarity or permission. Like, start with a conversation, start with curiosity, start by asking what's keeping them up at night. So as a Staff Plus engineer, it is no longer enough to just make good technical decisions. You have to make the right decisions for the business, often in complex, ambiguous situations. Like one pattern I found helpful is thinking in terms of a decision-making loop. It's a repeatable cycle that gives you structure on how to lead your team in making decisions. So first up, you frame the problem, right? You don't jump to solution mode. You start by asking, what's really at stake here? Like align on whether it's a technical problem, or maybe it's a people problem, or a prioritization problem. Like for example, a flaky internal tool might not need a complete rewrite. Maybe it just needs a clear owner. So second, you've got to align your stakeholders. Once you've framed the issue, bring in the right voices early. This is where influence starts. You're making the problem shared. So a great tactic for doing this is asking, what does success look like for you? Like, that lets you uncover silent criteria. So third, decide and document. So staff engineers don't just make decisions, they write them down. Clarity builds alignment. Like even a short Slack post, like, here's what we're doing and why, is great. So next up, share and socialize. You've made the decision. Now help others to understand it. Build visibility in a way that doesn't feel self-promotional, like link to a doc, recap in a Slack channel, like offer to present the solution at a team meeting. And finally, reassess it. Not all decisions age well. Staff engineers check back, like, is this still working? Like, should we circle back on this one? Okay, finally, you need to learn to become a leader. Let's be honest, for a lot of us in this field, like, that doesn't come naturally. Like, it didn't for me. Early in my career, I was all about getting things done the right way. I was focused, I was opinionated, and honestly, I was an asshole. I thought being right was the goal. But I wasn't thinking about how I made my coworkers feel. In one of my early performance reviews, my manager included this lovely bit of feedback from our support team. They said they were too intimidated of me to ask questions directly. So instead, they would go onto MacAdmin Slack and ask them there, because it felt safer for them. Like, that kind of hurt, I'll be honest. Like, but it was a turning point for me. I realized that being technically good isn't enough. At the staff level, you're not just solving problems. You're shaping how other people solve problems. You're not just executing work, you're influencing the direction of that work. And you can't do any of that effectively if people don't want to engage with you. I had to learn to listen, to explain, to empathize, to support others and not just correct them. That's what leadership actually is. Like, it's making space for others, not just taking space for yourself. So I'm going to leave you with this quote. This is what my manager said to me when he delivered that same performance review, and it's stuck with me ever since. You cannot be a leader without any followers. I mean, that might sound bloody obvious, right? But it's incredibly important. You can't be a leader just because you've got the job title or the experience or the strongest opinions in the room. You have to earn trust. You have to make people want to follow you. Not because they have to, but because they believe in you. Because they believe that them doing work on the things that you think are important is worth their time. And that means you can't be an arsehole. You have to be the kind of person people want to work with, want to listen to, and want to build something with. So that's leadership. And that's the part that turns a great IC into a great staff engineer. All right, we've covered a lot. From what staff actually means to how to build influence, to how to think more like a leader, like even when your title hasn't caught up yet. So let's take a breath. I'm going to leave you a quick recap, a few traps to watch out for, and a reminder that you're probably a lot closer than you think. So most people don't get promoted to staff because they're the loudest or because someone handed them a project with a pretty bow tied around it. They get there by quietly doing the hard, strategic, connective work that moves an org forward. Staff level growth doesn't usually look glamorous. It looks like being in the room early, fixing the problem no one has even named yet, like getting the right people aligned. Now, it's quiet, it's intentional, but it does get noticed. So if you're aiming for staff, you'll run into some traps. Like, I hit a load of these myself. Waiting for permission, you're going to miss the opportunity. Only doing the cool work, you're never building trust. Solving everything yourself, you're going to burn out and your team's not going to grow. Staying too deep in the weeds, you're missing the big picture. And thinking if I'm visible, I'm bragging? No. Visibility is how people know what you bring to the table. Staff engineers don't just do work, they shape work. That means stepping up and stepping back at the right moments. So let's talk about something I think a lot of senior ICs run into. And honestly, some I definitely ran into myself. You're doing great work. You're respected. Your code is flying out the door. You're usually the one person that people turn to when something breaks. But despite all that, you're stuck. You're not moving forward. You're not quite hitting staff. This is what I call the transition trap. The gap between being a really solid senior engineer and actually operating like a staff plus engineer. And the reason it's so tricky is that there's nothing wrong. You're not underperforming. You're not failing. You're just still playing the game the same way, but you're expecting a different outcome. So, if any of that resonates with you, like you might be wondering, am I in the transition trap? Right. So here's a few signs I look out for, both myself and in others that I've mentored. First off, like you're the go-to person for execution. You're trusted to deliver, but you're not part of the early conversations, like the ones that shape the project. Like that's definitely a sign. Or you're constantly solving problems yourself. And that feels really productive. But staff engineers build systems. They unblock people. And they prevent those problems happening in the first place. So another one. Your relationships are deep with your immediate team, but really thin across the rest of your org. If you want to operate at the staff level, your impact has to spill out beyond your function. Maybe the most common. You are extremely busy. You're absolutely slammed. But when you zoom out, it's hard to tell if what you're doing is actually moving the needle. Finally, you're waiting. You're waiting for someone to notice, to nominate you, to give you permission to level up. But the real shift often starts when you stop waiting, right, and start acting like you're already in the role. Staff engineers don't ask, can I? They just start doing the work, and then the title catches up. So if you see yourself in any of these patterns, like that is not failure, that's awareness. And awareness is the first step of getting out of the trap. So if anything I said today sounded familiar, that is not an accident. A lot of you are already doing pieces of this work. You're mentoring, you're thinking bigger, you're pushing your team forward. Maybe you just need the language for it or just the confidence to own it. And that's you, just like keep on going. Like you're already on the path to staff engineer. So you've all sat here long enough. It's time to put you all to work. I'm going to ask a few questions. And if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear some of your answers out loud. So stick your hand up and wait for the microphone to come your way. And I'm the world's worst thrower, so this is going to be interesting. So we're going to dive into where we're spending our time, whether we're spending our time on the right things. Don't overthink it. Just give me the first example that comes to mind. There's no judgment here. It's a very safe space. We've all been in the trap of doing work that feels urgent but might not be the most strategic. So first up, what is one thing you did last week that made a real difference to your org? Who'd like to go first? And if there are no volunteers, I will pick on people. Fair warning. About... Oh, I'm not going to throw it that far. Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah. Is this thing on? Okay. Like that? Okay. So I'm not one of the engineers at my org, but I noticed that we could deprecate one of our builds for a unit that's defunct now. So I brought that up to them and they took it out so that we have less stuff to look at and manage.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think it made a difference?
Shrunk the surface area of what we have to look at on a daily basis and made their job easier because they don't have to think about any new changes affecting this build that we had.
Would your org have missed it if you hadn't done it?
They probably wouldn't have caught it as fast as we did because the unit defuncted relatively recently, but probably eventually they would have noticed.
Nice, thank you. All right, anyone else? Person over here.
Ready?
Jesus, it's not going to go well. God.
My service desk team members and I, we finished up wrapping. A couple of members, part of my service desk team and I, we finished up a project about a week or two ago of migrating all of our Trello users to Jira. So now the entire company is now using Jira as opposed to Trello.
Did that work covering your team's backlog, or did you create space to do that?
We created the space to do that.
Nice. Who else benefited from that?
It was pretty much the entire organization across the board. Our engineering teams had been working in Jira for a long time. So instead of paying for 2 separate subscriptions, we were able to migrate the rest of the org onto 1 subscription.
Awesome. All right, thank you. All right, let's do the next one. What's one task you're doing right now that someone else could learn from doing? Well, someone here and then someone at the back.
Basically creating a simple reverse proxy that through some type of automated process in the back end.
What stopped you from handing that off to someone else?
Urgency for this specific need, yeah.
Okay. What would happen if you did delegate it?
People would learn. They'd have to go through documentation, so it's probably good to do so. Yeah.
There we go. All right, someone at the back. Thank you.
All right, so something that I'm doing that somebody else could probably learn from doing is periodically reassess all of our profiles and policies in Jamf to see if they are configured well or if they should be retired.
So what's the blocker from handing that off to someone else?
I would have to train them how to do it.
So ask again, what's the blocker from handing that off to someone else?
I don't have time to train them how to do it. Also, they're not really interested in doing it.
Well, that would be
That
a
makes
problem.
it makes it hard when they're not interested in doing it.
That would certainly be a problem. All right, thank you. Anybody else? Or are we going to move on to the next one? All right, let's go on to the next one. Is there a project you're working on where you're not sure if you're even solving the right problem anymore? Front.
I'm on a project to investigate
Hold it
like
a bit closer, I think.
AI. So there's this push to go like try anything AI related. But I think we're asking.
You need to hold it a lot closer, yeah.
I think we're asking the wrong question for AI. Like we're trying to use it because it's cool, not because it solves a measurable need in the way for the project.
So what would you do differently if you're starting fresh today?
Not sure. I don't know, to be honest.
All right, so if someone asked, why are we doing this? Like, how confident would your answer be?
Not good, because even the execs haven't given a good reason why we're doing it other than it's cool.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, quiet bunch today, right? Okay, here's a fun one. What's one meeting you suspect could disappear and absolutely no one would notice? Everyone's meetings are all 100% valuable use of their time. At least someone's lying. Wow, I want to work where you work then. Cool. Sounds awesome. I got some. No one? There we go, thank you.
Anything recurring without an agenda should not happen.
All right.
Number one. Number two, some things that, a lot of PM-led meetings also need to just be off the books. So I don't know if that happens to anybody else, but oftentimes they schedule a meeting without really a reason to schedule a meeting. So what I've been doing is just declining those. And if they have questions, they can DM me.
Excellent. Right, cool. Loads of people. Wonderful. Yeah.
One of the bigger things we get is everybody wants to set a 2-week recurring meeting to cover something because they want people to not forget about it. So there's an awful lot of meetings on my calendar that are just recurring meetings where there's nothing new happening. They just don't want people to forget about it.
So what would happen if you just stopped going?
Sometimes I do.
Lovely, thank you.
We have a
Hold it closer.
weekly vendor meeting that usually happens, and then nothing is important is talked about in that meeting.
So could you send someone else in?
I've certainly stopped going.
All right. Cool. And then we had down the back as well.
Good job with the throw. I think any meeting that turns into a gripe session is probably a meeting that could disappear.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ah, thank you. All right. My favorite. If you had 20% more time each week, what would you actually focus on? So basically what I'm saying here is, what are you putting off because of noise?
professional development.
All right. What could you stop doing to make space for that?
Stop going to the meetings where people are griping.
There you go, we're problem solver. Yeah.
Good, nice. My answer is not work-related, that I would do less work if I had more time. So I think we all probably work too much as is. So if I had 20% more time, I would just use that to not work and not burn myself out.
What's stopping you from doing that right now?
The expectations I have of myself. No one else, really.
Okay.
Oh.
Rich.
So this is kind of a reflection of, I recently switched jobs within the past year. And one of the things that my previous employer did, my unnamed previous employer, lots and lots and lots of meetings. And one thing that I found was that because my day got broken up into so many chunks, I didn't really have time to do long, sustained work, like writing documentation. Because documentation is one of those things that you need the screenshots, you need to get into the zone, you need to get into the frame of mind for writing good documentation. And since switching, I've had more time to do that. And that's been a big help.
Yeah, as an org, we've implemented focus time. So everyone has 3 hours uninterrupted time at the same time, which is the important part. So there's no meetings. All right, cool. Anyone else? Okay. Moving on then. So that was a lot. I understand. Yeah, you're fed up now. But I want to leave you with something practical. So staff is not a title you wait for. It's a role you grow into by showing up differently. So here are a few things you can try, like literally next week when you get home from this conference, to build the habits, the visibility, and the judgment of a staff engineer. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect clarity. You just need to start doing it. So pick one and kind of see what happens. All right, so that's it. We're hiring a security person with a focus on endpoint and a global head of IT support in the US, and I'm hiring for a couple of systems engineer roles in India. If you're interested in learning more about any of these, please come and have a chat with me. I have coffee chats with people twice a week. Coffee chats are one-offs where we can just chat about whatever you want, really. If you'd like to schedule one, you can hit me at graham.at/coffee chat. And then you can find me on these places. Like, I have a rarely updated website, and you can email me at my very cryptic and hard-to-guess email address. And if you found this talk useful in any way, please consider donating to the Movember Foundation and help save some of the lives of the people you might very well be sitting next to. And if we have 12 minutes for any questions, if there are any. Over here.
All right. Let's do a relay. My arm is not that good. To you, sir?
The slides will be available. Yeah. The question was just to see the previous slide, but I'm going to share the slides anyway. Any other questions?
So what if you work somewhere that doesn't really have this kind of formal title and recognition of this, even if you are in that kind of role?
All right, question for you. Who would create that kind of role?
I guess my boss.
So who do you need to talk to?
Yeah, them.
There you go. Anyone else? Excellent. You're all going to be staff engineers next time I see you. Wonderful. All right, thank you.